Hey, Dave Duford here at DeFord Insurance Group, where I train and recruit agents nationally to sell final expense and Medicare telephonically and face-to-face. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. The title of today's live stream is Selling Insurance Successfully on a Part-Time Basis. How to do it. So the reason I'm putting this video together is that a lot of you out there who are watching this live or watching the recording are probably interested in selling insurance, but you got this problem, money. You got a job, it pays decently, and you're a little bit worried about leaving said job to go full-time into insurance sales and are considering the opportunity to sell insurance part-time. The purpose of this video really is for me to kind of explore, along with you, the opportunity of selling insurance on a part-time basis to help you decide if a part-time strategy really makes sense for your kind of getting involved in the business goals. So what we're going to be talking about today is kind of extensive. Again, if you are considering this business, but you're not sure if you're going to go full-time or part-time, you're seriously considering the part-time side of the business, this video is definitely for you. Topics we're going to talk about today. I'm actually going to tell you my story about how I got started in the insurance business on a part-time basis, not once, but twice. So there's a bit of a story there. I'm going to share that with you momentarily. And then I'm going to get into the mindset side of the equation when it comes to selling part-time insurance successfully. A lot of agency owners don't like to recruit part-time agents because of perceived mindset issues, and there is definitely some truth to that. So we're going to go over about how to make part-time insurance sales successful and what kind of principles and practices you should follow to get the most out of it. Also, I'm going to tell you what suggested products would be a good idea to sell if you decide to go the part-time route. And then last but not least, of course, most of us look at getting into insurance because we want to dedicate our career to it ultimately. So part-time sales is kind of just the avenue in which we eventually get into full-time. So I'm going to go into detail about how you can start part-time, but build yourself up to and know when it's appropriate to go full-time, leave behind your other job, and fully dedicate yourself into the insurance world. Chris, Eric, Angela, Brent, Sarah, thank you so much for being here live. Appreciate you very much. Please make sure you guys hit the like button if you like this content and think it's share-worthy. So let's jump in and start going down memory lane. I've been in the business since 2011 after several years as a young man in his 20s running a personal training gym that was somewhat successful for a couple of years and just started to wither away on the vine. And I got attracted to the insurance business doing some due diligence online, stumbled across the insurance business, certainly never wanted to sell it. I mean, who wants to grow up being an insurance man? I didn't. Definitely no sex appeal. And but because I got desperate and I didn't want to go work for the man, I wanted to give it a shot. I like the idea of it. You run your own business. Most of insurance is very activity-based. You didn't have to have some high knowledge or a bunch of, intelligence to make the thing work. It's very much activity driven, going to see people, helping them out, repeating that process, kind of an old established business. So it was more predictable. And it was based off of lead purchasing. I didn't have to cold call or bother my friends and family, at least in final expense, and I'll talk about that later. But I didn't want to give up my personal training gym. At the time, back in 2011, I had clients, not a lot. I'd lost a good bit of them. I was probably clearing $2,000 a month, $2,500 a month. My savings was slowly falling apart as I was doing what I could to retain what business I had. And I knew I had to do something. I actually had tried to day trade before that. That was terrible. And I think I had tried to apply to, some pharmaceutical sales job, and nobody was taking me because being an entrepreneur, you're basically unemployable. Sorry if you aren't aware of that. Entrepreneurs usually are stuck in their ways. They want to run a business no matter what. So that's what attracted me to insurance, is I got to do basically the same thing I was doing with personal training. But like I said, I didn't want to give up the money I was making, as meager as it was, in my personal training gym. So I realized that the best way to get involved in this business is to start on a part-time basis. And the way I kind of justified it in my mind, I said, look, I've got something as much as I wish it was better. It's a sure thing. I'm making money personally training my clients, but it's never going to be where I want it to be. But this avenue in insurance has tremendous opportunity on the upside of income. And so I think testing the waters on a part-time basis is going to be less risky than jumping all in and completely committing myself out the gate before I even know if I'm actually right for the business, and I'm a good fit for it, and the business actually pans out the way that it's said it's going to pan out. Let's see if the claims match reality. So I started April or May of 2011, started working fresh direct mail leads, and quickly discovered, hey, I like this business. I made my first sale on my first day in the field. It was the last appointment of the day. I went on to make, I don't really remember the numbers now, but like 6,000 or 7,000 in production in June, double that in July, and I kind of went between 10 to 15,000 through the next following months pretty consistently. And about 6 months in, after I had seen that I was getting consistent results, that even there was more potential upside to what I was doing, that I was convinced insurance was for me because I had seen the track record long enough, and I was kind of burnt out on personal training anyway, that I wanted to make that move, and again, convinced myself that, okay, I can responsibly let the training gym go and then go full-time into the insurance sales. Now, here's the thing. It didn't work as I suspected. Go figure, right? About 9, 10, 11 months in, through a combination of my own stupidity and ignorance, no, not ignorance, stupidity, maybe an immaturity for sure, and a little bit of the IMO is with, I got myself into a lead bind. I didn't have enough prospects to see. I was frustrated with the business. I was disgusted with it. And I quit about 12 months in. And eventually went and got a job selling uniform services with a company called Aramark. That was my first foray into the corporate world, which I discovered very quickly how much that sucks. I didn't like working for them. I didn't like the product. I didn't believe in it. But I had to make some money, so I had to suck it up and do it. And thankfully, that was a teachable moment for me. And again, after a couple of months of swearing off final expense in the insurance business, I said, you know what? I think this time I could do things differently and get back in on a part-time basis so I could sell full-time with Aramark as a uniform rep, but then also sell insurance part-time. And so I did. I started pretty much a month or two after I began at Aramark, kind of went out early, worked all weekends, worked several nights during the week. And over the course of 12 months, I steadily made sales pretty consistently, fix the problems that I personally had caused through my own lack of maturity and lack of wisdom, got back to fundamentals in the business, and carried that out over the course of 12 months until my wife, 37 weeks pregnant, got into a car wreck with probably a drunk driver, somebody high on some kind of drug. And she was with twins too, and she was enormous. And that was my last day on the job. I quit Aramark, went back to work after the twins were delivered, and went full time. And I was like, screw it, let's go, And those were the days, and never had to look back. And that was, I think, 2012. The girls are 8, turning 9 this year. Are they 10? Something like that. Anyways, maybe it was 2013. That's what it was, 2013. So it took me this time around 12 months, a full year, really, before I fully went full time. And thankfully, again, never look back. So the reason good to see you, Steve, Justin, sweet. Thanks so much for being here. Lisa, John. Is that a big bag of brass? It sure is. 1,000 rounds. Got a good deal for it. I got the other 1,000 in the box over there. Hey, Alan, how you doing? Chris, to you too. So why am I telling you my story? Because I'm pretty experienced in 2 times around with doing part-time insurance sales successfully. And I think I can kind of share with you some advice, and make sure you close that door nice and hard, Dave. We'll see how that works. I think I can share with you some perspective on how to make it work, because I've made it work twice, and I've helped a lot of agents over the years do exactly the same thing. So why did I go part-time and go full-time? I think there's some definite benefits to part-time sales, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that. I think the first thing, as I kind of conveyed, in the process is there is a reduction in the risk overall, right? To be completely honest with you, the vast majority of you who are looking to get into insurance already have a career somewhere else. You've developed a certain level of skill, a certain level of knowledge and experience that's marketable, that will get you a job, that could progress you up the ladder of whatever your career and whatever industry you're in. But you're considering throwing it away or putting it on pause while you pursue this entrepreneurial venture of which you have no firsthand experience in, that you only see these videos like I do or others do, or you hear about from maybe your friends or family who are in it. And this is risky. You're putting off your career path that you partaked on in the beginning for this hope, this dream of entrepreneurial potential, to make potentially good money, to have a business that allows you to have freedom and some autonomy. And it's risky. And I say it's risky because you're doing something that most Americans never do, taking a chance on yourself. And so for me, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I come from a family of businessmen. It's natural for us to do what we do. Even though I was naturally an entrepreneur, I knew intuitively that it was a risk doing something different than what I had known for the last 5 years being personal training. So the way I mitigated that risk, the way I made it less risky in my mind, which I think is why part-time works so well, is that I decided to test it on a level that I could really see if it was right for me, but without giving up the existing business. So in other words, I think that's the biggest business of part-time work. You may have a job that pays great that you hate, but you don't want to give up what you get out of the job. And I think in a situation like that, or the income or the wage that you currently have is too painful and too risky to give up, I think starting part-time is 100% fine. And we'll talk about some of the objections to it because not everybody feels the same way. A lot of agencies won't recruit part-timers. But I think starting this business in this way is a way to test the waters without being fully committed and risking what you have built prior to making this transition into this business. Okay. And the other thing too, the nice thing about doing this part-time is that you have a guaranteed income, right? When you go straight into the business of selling insurance, whatever it is, it's typically 100% commission. And the risk of failure is high. 90% plus of new agents in their first year fail out of the business, okay? The odds are against every single one of us getting started in the business. That's just reality. And when you start part-time, you don't have the same financial risk as somebody who goes completely all in. You can stumble a little bit with more securities. It's like you got in bowling where you put the things in the gutters, the gutter guards, right? You have a little bit more safety net, if you will, that if you stumble and struggle in your first couple of months getting onboarded, and it kind of buys you more time to learn the business, get established, see what mistakes you make, correct those mistakes, and again, work as much as you can and achieve as much as you can towards the ideal state of being a successful agent. You can't get that in full time, and that's kind of the biggest contrast, is that when you're full time, again, we'll talk about in a minute, you're full time, you're fully committed. You don't make a sale, you don't eat. And for a lot of you out there, you have never lived in this world, and it's really hard to commit to that. And it may not sound as profound as it does as I say it, but it is. And even for me, I have always eaten what I killed, besides that 1 year that I worked for Aramark and made a wage plus commission. I always had straight commission. I lived like that. And even with that kind of confidence that I could go out there and make things happen, I still didn't feel 100% comfortable starting this business without seeing evidence that I could actually be successful to it. So it's something to think about. Now, there are some drawbacks to part-time insurance sales. Again, I'm not here to say it's always 100% good or always 100% bad to do part-time insurance sales. I'm here to present to you both sides of the coin so that you can make your mind up kind of what works best for you. So let me talk about some of the drawbacks of working part-time, so that you can, again, figure out if it's something that's a good fit for you or not. So the number one thing I think, and this is what most agencies who don't recruit part-timers will tell you, is the nature of being part-time is being partly committed. Again, if you're part-time in the business, you're working a couple of days after work, maybe on the weekend, you're not as fully, literally, you're not as committed because you have commitments to something else first and foremost. And from a mindset standpoint, that can put some impediments in the way naturally. You're committed to something else, your job that makes you money, and sometimes agents don't treat the business of insurance sales as a business. It becomes a hobby. It's something they do when they have time. It's not a business like it would be if you were fully committed. So there's all sorts of problems that manifest from this potential. For example, it's just easier to quit. If you're making guaranteed money at your job, yeah, you hate it, but it's guaranteed, and you're selling insurance, but you have a bad run for a couple weeks, but you don't depend on the money, the motivation, some people would argue, is not nearly as much there to have an impact on your work ethic and desire and motivation, because you don't have anything really to lose, as opposed to somebody who is fully committed, who lives and dies off of what sales they make or they don't make. So again, it's easier to quit because of that. Failure isn't as pronounced. Again, if you fail out of the insurance business, you don't make money. You can't pay your rent. You can't pay for food. Again, in extreme circumstances, right? But that fear is always there. And that fear is kind of that motivator, that light under the butt, fire under the butt to get people moving. Not going to have that as much, again, on a part-time basis, okay? So, again, these are kind of the biggest things that I think are the pros and the cons of selling insurance. And again, they will affect you differently. For me, I guess kind of looking back, I'm not regretful of starting part-time, because what I saw when I first started was an opportunity on a sales basis to make a six-figure income and to do it on my terms, which I highly valued. It was less about the money and more about the freedom to run my business as I believed and dreamed, right? And I couldn't do that ever with corporate America. I was always going to be a slave to some company in my mind at the time. So for me, the idea of starting part-time was this middle road where I could test the concept of an entrepreneurial activity like selling insurance and see if it worked, but without giving up the thing that I was doing to make me closer to a guaranteed income. But again, I was more motivated by, okay, this is just my first stop doing this part-time, because if it works, I know I'm going all in. So I had this grander vision of things, not exactly as it is today. It's gotten even better than I ever imagined 11 years in. But I had that idea in my mind, like, I want to make a great income, and I want a business model that's going to work. And this is my attempt to test it, okay? The second time around when I didn't go, I failed out of the business, came back, worked for Aramark, and then did this on the side. The second time I did that, it was a bit different. I knew I could do it. I had just gotten distracted from the fundamentals. And this time around, I said, you know what? I want to do this, but do it right. And I want to make sure, as we'll talk about really importantly, I want to make sure I have a big fat bankroll before I leave, because as we'll discuss, it's very important. Cash is king. Having money on hand to finance your business is incredibly important. And I learned what happens when you're good at something, but you don't have money. You're really at exposure to getting taken out of the business, because you have to buy leads and run your business just like any business. So we'll talk more about that in a minute. So a couple of things here on the mindset principles. Again, I've kind of talked about this at length, but I want to make sure I punctuate this, because I think you got to bring the right mindset into this business if you're dead set on doing this part-time, full-time too, but it's different part-time. So I want to make sure that we clarify some mindset factors as we kind of progress through this presentation. So first of all, the best way I can summarize your mindset is that even though you have a part-time schedule, you got to have a full-time mentality, okay? So if you're selling part-time insurance products, you still need to think as if you're running a full-time insurance sales business. So what does this mean? Let's clarify some things, again, based off of what we talked about. Number one, this isn't a hobby selling insurance part-time, okay? You're not selling, I don't know, Lululemon or Herbalife or Mary Kay, right? This isn't something you do when you're bored. This is a business, and you need to treat it like it, okay? So So what does that mean to have a business? It means that, yeah, you have a part-time schedule, but you commit to it. You follow through on it. You track your activity. You set goals for yourself. You set deadlines to achieve those goals. You look back at your activity and look for opportunities for improvement. You're always looking for ways to level up and improve your business, okay? Sorry, telemarketer. So bottom line, what you need to do is, again, treat this like a business, okay? Another thing you need to do, as many of you are looking to start part-time, is that you need to look at this with the eventual goal of going full-time. And my recommendation is to put a 6 to 12 month deadline on your desire or goal to go full-time selling the insurance product you're selling. And I think setting a deadline is going to get you serious about hitting these short-term goals, like running appointments, buying leads, making sales, saving the money from those sales. So by the time 12 months are up, you've hopefully developed a very large bankroll, and you have the conviction and financial confidence of going solo, leaving your job, and never looking back again, okay? And again, all part-time is, I talk a lot about this, about scaling the business. Some of you have watched some of my other videos where we talk about how to scale up your activity so you can sell 80 policies a month or $10,000 a week. And one of the common things that I tell agents is that all a scaled up business is writing $10,000 a week is the same thing as what you would do activity-wise and lead-wise running and writing $2,000 a week. It's just more of the same. So the inverse is true for part-time versus full-time sales. It's exactly the same business that you run full-time. It's just less of the same. Okay, it's less of the things that make full-time work because it's a part-time schedule. So again, as we talk about the business, there's nothing distinctly different about part-time sales. It's just less time. It's still a business. All the fundamentals still apply, but you're doing this on a part-time basis. So don't think of this any more differently than that. Take it just as serious. Have that deadline, have that vision of where you're going, and apply and activate and execute on that business strategy, even if it's on a part-time basis, okay? Again, kind of built into this here, again, we're thinking on these lines of it's just a business, it's just part-time. Same things apply. Have a lead generation strategy. Don't do that. If you want to be successful part-time, then build into a full-time type of schedule. Don't buy leads here and there haphazardly like you were doing a hobby. You need to set up a consistent lead flow if your business model requires you to buy leads. Have them set up on a weekly recurring basis where you're getting new leads every single week, regardless of what kind of leads it is. Make sure that you have that lead generation strategy. Again, don't be haphazard about it. And yeah, just consistently have people to see, just like you would if you're full-time, okay? Now, a little diversion here. And again, I see some questions in the chat, guys. Hey, Jess, John, how you doing, guys? Branson. I'm going to come back to this. And if you got questions about part-time sales in the insurance business, post them in the chat. Any other questions you got, throw them in the chat. I'm going to get to those after I end my little training notes here. And again, I ask you, if you enjoy this content, consider hitting the thumbs up button and letting YouTube's algorithm know that this content is share-worthy. I appreciate it. Okay. So what products should you sell if you're considering getting into insurance part-time? So again, some of you might just be exploring this business model as a side hustle or something to do in addition to what you're currently doing. And the first thing to know is that there's a lot of niches within insurance. It's not just life insurance, it's final expense or mortgage protection. It's also property and casualty, car insurance, Medicare, right? They're under 65 health insurance. There's a lot of different ways you can sell insurance. And without getting too distracted from the point of this video, one of the best pieces of advice I could give you as a new agent is pick your poison. Pick one of these products, one of these, or anything really, whether you're part or full-time. Pick your primary product and let that be your focused effort. What you don't want to do, which is a common mistake new agents make, is they try to be everything to everybody. And the thing that you have to understand about the insurance business, it's lucrative for all the products. So, and there's always good salespeople recruiting and promoting these products that will try to convince you should sell this product instead of that one. And if you're just strung out all over the place on doing different products, you're never going to have the benefit that focused effort provides in becoming an expert. So do your due diligence. I got a website, daviddeford.com. There's a link at the top that says like New Agent Resource Guide. And there's a lot of a deeper explanation on some of the products I'm going to mention here, as well as others as well. You need to do your due diligence because this business is friggin' awesome. It is like the best business that nobody knows about or really wants to do. And you need to make sure you do it the right way. So taking your time to slow down and think about this stuff is imperative because focus is critical to long-term success and short-term. So what products are good to sell part-time? So let me kind of tell you and then explain why. Of course, I started in the insurance business selling final expense. I believe final expense is probably one of the best products to sell on a part-time basis. Why? Because it's a one-call close. Leads are easily accessible. It's a very simple product to learn with a simple sales pitch, and it's duplicatable and repeatable, whether you want to sell remotely over the phone or in person. So again, and it makes a decent first-year commission. So I like that product for that reason. It's a great gateway product to get into the insurance business. Also, kind of somewhat related to it is the mortgage protection business. Mortgage protection is life insurance basically sold to new homeowners and people who are refinancing. They've now got this huge debt that if they die and the breadwinner dies with it or dies, now there's a mortgage that can't be paid potentially and the family may be evicted or foreclosed on. And so what mortgage protection does is essentially it's life insurance with the idea of paying off the mortgage when the person dies. This is a great product to sell. There's some issues with it. I think that I prefer final expense personally. It's a lot of nighttime sales. You might have to travel a bit, although you can definitely sell it remotely, probably a little easier than you can over the phone with final expense, in my opinion, because you can use Zoom and it makes it a little more accessible. But it is something that is kind of on par with some of the same benefits of final expense. Also, you can sell Medicare. This is a growing percentage of my revenue in my business. We're growing this particular type of product at a large rate. I like Medicare because there's a ton of prospects. The Medicare eligible age group is experiencing a tremendous surge of new prospects and will continue to really for the next 15 to 20 years. People have to pick up some kind of Medicare Advantage or supplement plan. They don't have to, but they most likely will because of all the advertising. And in many cases, it's a simple sale because people know they need health insurance. And there's abundance of prospects. It's a one-call close for the most part. And what I like about it is it builds a residual income. One of the things I don't like about selling Medicare is that it pays a lower first-year commission relative to life insurance products. But it is something that if you really are passionate about residual income and you're looking to start part-time in this business, if your needs are met with your job, then you can start Medicare. It's a great way to start because as you build that residual income and you have that passivity coming in or the passive income coming in, it's a little bit easier to leave after a year or so of writing the business. And last here is, and this is something that I think we'll start to see a lot more interest in probably over the next couple of years, is under 65 health insurance. We recently did a convention in Las Vegas. My health insurance trainer, Luis Moreno, got done and did a module on what we call ACA or Obamacare, lots of different ways to describe it. I call it under 65 health insurance because it's pretty straightforward. And the amount of money he's making personally, not just off of residual income, because it's a passive earning product, but also off of bonuses that these carriers are making is just incredible in the short time he's been doing it. And it's really, like I said, really untapped relative to some of these other markets that are out there. So I think you can also sell that. And again, it's one of those products that people will willingly listen to you because either the coverage just is terrible or they're paying an arm and a leg for the coverage. So people are typically open-minded to see what you got to talk about. And there's been some new things that have been released to create what's called special election periods, depending on your income range, that make it a year-round sales opportunity. That's something that the Biden administration passed recently. So this is something that's also well worth considering too. So those four are just the options that I'm most familiar with. Again, for the record, as you guys know, I'm a big believer in final expense and Medicare. I think ACA is something that's going to be big. And I think all of those, especially probably out of the 3 or 4 there, the life insurance side is probably my preference to start an agent with just because the money is so much higher on first-year commissions. Therefore, it's easier to cover your cost of doing business because a lot of these business models, they require you to invest your money in a lead generation strategy. Okay. Now let's keep going here. So let's wrap this up here, and then I'm going to start taking some of your questions from the chat. How can you go from part-time to full-time? Again, I kind of hit on this, but I'll just kind of repeat this because it's so important, is figuring out how you can make that transition from selling part-time successfully. How can you confidently go full-time? So again, the first time I did it, I had to test if this business was right for me. I didn't want to do it off the basis of 1 month or 2 months. I wanted to put 6 months into it. And so that was my deadline I set in the future. And as I proved in each month that I was making sales, I was getting results, and I saw the money hitting my bank account, I became convinced. I'm generally a cynic in life. And so when I saw that I was doing well, it's at that point that I'm a doubting Thomas. I saw it for myself consistently, and I knew that there was even more scalability that I hadn't even touched. So the opportunity was tremendous, and that experience of slow rolling it out was what I needed to see. And then the second time, again, was a bit different because one of the things that I discovered failing out of the business was the importance of having money. I know that sounds silly. We always need money, right, to live. But when you run a straight commission job or business, we have ups and downs in our production. Some months are hot, some months are not. There's going to be this wave effect, especially as you're new. It's not algorithmically predictable that if I put X amount of appointments in, I'll always make Y amount of commissions. It's going to vary. It does for the best of agents. And the thing that an agent on a straight commission basis needs to respect more is that you need to make sure that you've got a bankroll, a cushion financially to weather the storms of a rough week or month. It happens to all of us. And the agents that don't have bankroll or cash flow, really not so much cash flow, but bankroll, a large bankroll, are more subject to losing in this business more consistently because they can't weather, taking the heat for a while and getting beat up a little bit. So the second time before I went full time, I stretched my goal out to 12 months, not 6 months. And I took my time making sure to save as much money as humanly possible so that when I would go full time, I was so flush with cash that I didn't have to worry about the same failure issues that, again, I contributed to the failures just in the decisions I made. But financially, I had more security. So I worked off during that 12-month period of time, paying my debts off, paying down my credit card so I could lower my living expenses, and saved most of that income as my amount of money to just be like a slush fund in case things got bad 1 month. Again, I'm not saying that you've got to have whatever amount, 10, 15, 20, whatever the amount is in cash sitting in your bank account. But the more money you have bankrolled, the higher likelihood that you're going to survive, because there are good agents with good potential that have poor money management skill sets that fail this business because being a business owner, the buck stops with you financially, man. You can't just go blow money on dumb crap. You've got to be realistic and responsible and understand there are ups and downs, seasons to everything. And if you want longevity in this business, you've got to be financially prepared and be, what's the word I'm looking for? Diligent with your money. You've got to be studious. You've got to be frugal when it comes to this. So don't buy the expensive car because you had a $50,000 month. Live poor is really the best advice I could give you, okay? A couple of things here. Before you go full-time into this business, make sure you see through results that you're meant for this business, that you can consistently pull an income out of this business every single week. Make sure that you're prepared mentally for straight eat what you kill commission and income earning. Again, the one thing I think from a mindset standpoint that does change is now that you're letting the job go with most likely a guaranteed income, it's all live or die, man. It's ride or die. You better make money or you ain't making nothing, and you're going to have to go back to your job. And that's a scary proposition to be totally, you really, and I remember Brian Tracy saying this, in sales, you wake up unemployed every morning. Like one of my motivators, I think, in this business has always been like, I could be poor again. I don't want to be poor. So I'm going to go work because being poor sucks. I don't want to do that again. Again, when I failed, I had like $95 in my bank account. And even worse, I had to go tell my wife she was right, that I shouldn't have done this business. And it sucked. Of course, I came back, as you guys know from earlier. But my point is that It's different when you're on a straight 100% commission basis, and make sure you're prepared for it. And again, one of the things that I think prepare you is having more than adequate money in the bank account to weather the storms that come with any straight commission sales. And of course, last but not least, this business of part-time sales and insurance is just a part of full-time. What you will do part-time and what you have seen success on a part-time basis is just 2 or 3 times the amount of activity on a full-time basis. And again, I think that's what's most cool about doing this business part-time, is that really there's nothing inherently different except doing more work. Being part-time versus full-time, it's the same prospects, it's the same leads, it's the same sales system, it's the same process. It's just you're going to be doing more of it, granted, on a whole 100% commission basis. So don't be afraid when that time comes, when you have the confidence, making that leap. It's the best thing I ever did with this business, is be fully committed to it after I knew that I could be successful. And the benefits I've gotten from being in insurance have just been through the roof. Wonderful. And I do hope that you highly consider selling insurance, whether it's part-time or full-time. This business is worth the stress, the struggle, the frustration, especially in the first year to 2 years. Once you get on the other side of that, I have found in all the years I've recruited, and me personally, things do gradually get better. And the lifestyle, the income, the respect that I have in this business compared to my peers who aren't in this business at my age is just profoundly night and day difference. And the only regret I have is not doing insurance when I was 20 years old or 18. I wish I hadn't waited till I was 26 to get into it. So there we go. Now let's look at some questions from the chat here. Hope you enjoyed this little broadcast here on selling insurance. Let's go right to the top, and I'm going to go through everybody's list of questions. Hey, how you doing, Lisa? John? Hey, Steve, I'm getting crushed. Giving up is really not an option, but I'm having to jump back into fundraising to pull in some cash. Basically, I just feel unprepared, was given the whole rah-rah, lots of cash. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is a problem here, and I don't think I had any space in my sales pitch to you, my presentation to you today. You guys, before you pull the trigger on joining any agency, part-time or full-time, do your due diligence. Again, this is a common issue. Steve has been on the broadcast here a couple of times. I'm not going to mention which agency he's part of, but they do a lot of the Kool-Aid, rah-rah drinking, where what the training is more about getting pumped up on and high on the Kool-Aid than it is actually getting your hands dirty, learning this craft of selling insurance. Make sure you take the time to find the agency that's going to train you, that's going to guide you, that's going to give you a system that's duplicatable, give you access to leads that can get in front of that are decent quality. You need all this to have a chance of success. And unfortunately, there's a big culture in this business of multi-level marketing. People want to bring you into their downline, and they want to recruit your friends and your family and repeat that process over and over. And the problem with that is usually if the focus is on recruiting, it's not on training, it's not on helping you learn how to sell. And this business is merciless. And if you don't have the proper training to be successful at sales, you're up a creek without the paddle, figuratively speaking. And your likelihood of success is not as high as it could be if you had a definable sales system and marketing system that you could learn. Yeah, self-training works, but it's good to have some feedback from a trainer or a mentor. I sat down with some of my agents this weekend at the Las Vegas convention that we had, the Elite Agent Summit, and kind of listen to their business model, some of the concerns that they're having, and just having somebody who's been there and done that and will shoot you straight and not pull any punches. It's so rare to have somebody do that for you that I think, I can tell you myself, I avoided a lot of the mentorship and the kind of feedback mechanism from somebody who is skilled because, just like some people, I guess I had a sense of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just self-conscious, exposing myself and not, avoiding the kind of constructive criticism that might have ignored or avoided some of the pain that I went through. But of course, not all lessons are learnable. You got to experience it firsthand. But I told one of these agents, directly how I felt about how she was generating leads. You got success from this. Why don't you keep doing this? You had success. Why would you change anything? Kind of in that plain spoken, direct manner. And sometimes it sounds obvious, but you need somebody you respect that's been through the same stuff to kind of just tell you how it is. And there's something that clicks in the brain where it's like, yeah, why didn't I think of that? Well, sometimes you just need to hear it from somebody else who's been there, done that. So I think mentorship is something that you want to have, but ultimately that doesn't replace the importance of self-learning, of self-discovery, of applying what you've learned to take a chance on yourself. You do got to get out there and pull the trigger after all. Hey, what's going on, Justin? Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Sweet. Hey, Madeline. Nice to meet you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Hey, John, Jess, Justin. Read your new book. I loved it. I'm going to start doing telesales for assurance, where you don't pay for leads, but I hear the training is bad. Can bad training automatically make you fail? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you don't know what to do when the client says, I need to think about it at the end of the close, or, I don't like to do business over the phone. Can you mail me something? You got to be prepared to handle that competently and confidently. So if the training's not there, you're up the creek without a paddle, figuratively speaking again. You want both, okay? You want training, you want support. That's right, all fashion. Hey, Kevin, how you doing? Branson, hey. Absolutely, that's the situation I'm in. I approached it wrong the first time and treating myself as a beginner this time around to be successful. And again, part of the reason, and we're going to talk about my failure story tomorrow in a little bit more detail, because I did fail out of the business, like I said, suffered greatly from it. And I'm a statistic in the sense I came back and was successful. The vast majority of you are facing failure. Again, I don't want to give away the farm too early. That's for tomorrow's broadcast. You need to take this business seriously today, because you may not have a second chance. And if you only knew what I knew, standing 11 years in front of you versus your first year, many of you out there, this business is absolutely worth yielding the ego and having humility and just following the system, of one of which has been proven, and applying yourself diligently to it. Obviously going through the difficulties of dealing with prospects, of hearing no, of not making sales. I can tell you with confidence it was absolutely worth everything to do that, but you don't have that same level of experience that I do. So that's why I'm sharing this with you. You got to look at this business seriously and consider every angle, because most people fail, because partially they don't, and there's other reasons we'll talk about tomorrow, but you want to avoid being a statistic. Not everybody gets a second chance is what I'm trying to say. Definitely set the deadline. Alan, I've had plans to go part-time, but got let go from the day job yesterday. Oh, man, I'm sorry to hear that. Looks like I'm going full-time. There you go. Maybe just jump all in after all, right? Sounds good. That's right, Dak Long. It's life. Steve, I had a guy today who filled out a lead for a roof, and it was a lead for final expense. After speaking with him for 15 minutes, I realized he was telling the truth. Is that how it works? Nah, it just happens sometimes. I think I had talked to a lady about, I don't know, something similar years and years ago. You can still fact find. Again, at some level, at the end of the day, again, not 100%, but a big part of just leads is just to get you in front of people to talk, okay? If you can get an audience with somebody and develop a connection with them, start asking about what they do with their insurance, what they think about it, would they be open-minded to getting a better deal? There's all sorts of opportunities out there. All a lead is an opportunity to get in front of somebody. Again, I like leads that say life insurance. I like leads that are a little more specific, right? But and at some level, it doesn't matter what the lead says. If you can get in the door, have a great conversation and connect, that's what most of the effort will yield, is an opportunity to sell. Where to buy good leads? Lots of opportunities for leads. We have a fixed price direct mail lead program through my agency, which is imperative if you're going to sell face-to-face, final expense. Same thing with Medicare as well. We also have access to Facebook and digital leads. We also have a seminar marketing program to teach you how to sell final expense without any costs. That's a nice little program to develop leads. And then that's free to my agents who join. Do you provide training? I'm licensed in health and life in Connecticut. Hey, $7 Beats. Yes, absolutely. We do training twice a day, Monday through Friday, 30-minute daily huddles at 9 and 1 p.m. Eastern. And then on Friday, 2-hour deep dive trainings reviewing real-life sales calls from 9 to 11 and 1 to 3, all of which are recorded. You can watch later. Not to mention tons of self-study training, scripting, carrier training, cheat sheets to help you underwrite your clients. Training is huge with what I do. And I put a lot of time and effort into it because it makes the difference for a lot of people. If you want more information on that and how my agency works, $7, go to daviddufour.com/FAQ. Hey, Don, has the gorilla entered the room now that Fidelity Investments has entered the Medicare market? I don't know, Don. I don't know much about it. I'll check it out. Likely not. I think what you'll see with Medicare, though, Don, is I think the insurance business, especially in the senior market, is under. I don't know. I think there's a lot more opportunity for entrance into the market than I think we have right now. And the reason is we have seniors retiring. I mean, we were talking to Brandon Clay, who is CEO of SMA, which we upline our Medicare products through. And there's 13,000 seniors right now hitting 65 every day, starting Medicare and probably getting a supplement or Medicare Advantage plan. And there's just not enough people to help these prospects. And that prospect pool is going to grow, I think, by 50% over the next 20 years. The population over 65 is going to be gone from 11 or 12% today to 17% by 2040. All of this is to say, when you've got a growing pool of prospects that I believe Medicare is not going to really change that much unless there's just some tremendous war or something. I don't see Medicare changing because it's the political third rail. You have a huge opportunity as a business to get into. That's why I'm extremely bullish on Medicare, really anything in the senior market. That's why I invest a lot of time and money and direction into it. So, but I don't see anybody coming out, and that's what's cool about this business. I don't see any business that's going to come in and completely shake the business up. The one thing, Don, you may want to look into is look at some of the performance of some of these call centers over the past quarter or two. I've seen, again, not in-depth analysis. I'm not a financial guy. But I looked at some of the reports from, I think, GoHealth, eHealth, Primerica, which had a Medicare division. Don't know if you guys know that. But they have all gotten crushed tremendously. One of which, I forget which one, sold out. And part of their sellout figures would be hitting a production volume. Missed it, or it looks like they're going to miss it bigly. And the point is, a lot of the Medicare business went to the call center route. And what's happened now is it's so competitive. It's hard to get leads. There's so many people getting calls all the time. And what I think the business model is forgotten is that insurance is sold. It's not bought. You've got to make a connection with your prospects, and people want a professional to help them with their Medicare, especially I'm more talking about Medicare than final expense here. And the business and the money in Medicare is made through retention. And when you get some flunky at a call center that takes the Joe Namath inbounds and doesn't, create that and just one and dones it, there's no connection or loyalty to that client to the agency. And guess what they're going to do when the next best thing comes along or a good salesman calls them up? They're gone. And that's the problem I believe a lot of these organizations have faced, is they have forgotten the human element with it. And I think where the opportunity is going to lie is back to face or over the phone. A real-life professional agent that is going to not just sell them a deal, but service them and create a relationship. That's where I think the most lucrative opportunities, which is what I do, which is what you're probably going to do, are going to be within. Not the massive call centers with hundreds of reps that are barely trained or barely knowledgeable. That's a losing proposition. And so again, that's why I think this business, no matter if the big guys come into this business is so ripe for people who want to come in, take it seriously, focus, hunker down. I believe the next 5 to 10 years are going to be absolutely astounding. Join me. I think it's worth it. Thank you, Branson. My mistake. Jumped the gun on the first 2 weeks. Yeah, no problem, man. Sarah, Fidelity is in the Medicare market now? Must be. All right, let me get through these questions here. Hey, Jess, what has been the longest time frame that you had a dry spell part-time? I don't know. I always made sales. I remember 1 week in particular, Jess. I was up in Cleveland, Tennessee, and I just got off a week where I closed like $9,000 in premium. I think it was January 2012, somewhere in winter. And I was like, man, I'm crushing it. I can't wait to stop selling stop doing personal training and make all this money. And then the following week, I think it was God humbling me, which, could use a lot of that back then. I think I sold one policy for like $20 out of 15 or 20 appointments. And then the person called to cancel. So it's like, don't get too high on your own supply, because this business comes in waves, and that's just the nature of it. Again, part of that starts to level out as you go through it, but you're not immune from having a bad day, or certainly weak. So I think that was the biggest cold spell I had, or just a contrast of it, at least. Hey, Branson, worst day of my life was having to show back up to my old job. Had to fix my mindset and mentality on this amazing business. Not used to a 1099 mindset. Yeah, 100%, man. It's for real. And you can't really be prepared for it, especially if all you've done is worked a job. And I know I wasn't, even after being self-sufficient in my own gym for years. Any success stories of any agents using their job money for cash flow and taking final expense commission as earned to build a residual check rapidly to oppose to mounting of advanced debt? Hey, Nick, no. No, I don't know any of that. I've had agents over the years that want to go as earned or reduce their advance commission, but the truth is, Nick, cash flow is king, okay? You have to have cash flow to survive. My dad ran a chemical business back in the 90s and 2000s, and he started taking contracts from like Pilgrim's Pride, ConAgra, these big plants, and he sold chemicals to disinfect the bacteria in the production process. And he was happy and just thrilled. He closed these big deals. But the problem with corporate America is they pay on like a 90-day net, right? So you're going to supply them the product, but you're not going to get paid for 90 days. So Dad he was thriving by selling deals, but he wasn't seeing cash flow. And so for a period of time, he told me years later, he had this nice house, but there was no furniture in it because he had to sell it all to make the cash so that he could keep his business going, right? So my point is when you reduce the advance commission, yes, you're reducing your financial exposure to chargebacks, but you're also reducing, for the average person, the ability to pay bills, to pay for leads, and to survive. So it's cutting your nose off to spite your face, right? What's the solution? Nick, man, the solution is write good business. This is why I advocate don't sell for one company. Don't push product or use a sales strategy that applies pressure to the client that may not want to buy it or can't afford it. Be a broker. Shop around for the best combination of price and coverage for your client. Make sure that you're selling, that you're building internal tension in the client. You're not applying pressure. Make sure they understand why they're buying it and they're making that decision for themselves to buy. And you're working within a budget that they agree 100% that they can afford. And adhere to all these principles. And I don't think you have to worry about chargebacks to the extent that some people freak out about them. Again, a lot of this goes into what you sell and how you sell. Acklong, do you have a recommended education course of us working under a captive agency with aspirations of opening in an indie one day? I find that my boss is not so forthcoming. So let me read your questions. Recommended education resources? Can you kind of clarify what that means in a follow-up there, Acklong? And as I go through these questions, I'll try to wait for it and answer it, okay? Hey, Branson, get the word out to everyone. Start recruiting now. I wish I would have. Terrible mindset I put on a pedestal. Yeah. 100%, yeah. And that's just the mentality. And a lot of us have to go through that process to realize it firsthand. But again, I'm sure there's organizations that recruit heavily but put a value on training and support and development. But in reality, the vast majority I've seen over the years really focus on one or the other. It's hard to serve two masters, and you're either going to get an organization that's values tremendously above all else development of the agent and helping you become a top producer, or they're going to put more of a value and thus all their focus on how you can get recruited to recruit and help others that you recruit to recruit others, an MLM model. Hey, MK, I understand you expect agents to purchase so much in leads for every week. Can you say with certainty that all of that is received back each week or month? No, not at all. Nobody anywhere can say with certainty about what you can expect. And again, with 100% certainty, I should clarify. This is a business you're taking a risk on, MK. Make no doubts about it. There's no guarantee of success. The way I like to think about it is we want to align the factors of success in our favor. We want to have good training, want to have good support, we want to have the best leads, we want to have the best carriers, we want to prepare the best, right? But even with all those guarantees in your favor, those odds in your favor, doesn't mean you're going to 100% be assured of your success. This business, the vast majority fail. It is what it is. Success, a six-figure income, is extraordinary. It is unusual to see that. It is not something that's easily accessible. There are people in this field that suggest anybody can sell insurance, and that's such a lie. They know it, even though they say it, because they're interested in recruiting everybody with a pulse. Most people can't do this business successful. Sounds kind of depressing, but it's the truth. Truth sometimes sucks to hear. And so what you need to be thinking about is, how can I do everything possible to be successful? Now, as far as if you are successful and if you see success, yes, you should see cash flow within several weeks of writing business. When we're talking about final expense, that's my frame of reference here. It can vary depending on what you're selling. But I tell agents you should be cash flow positive 1 to 2 months in from when you start. Sometimes faster than that. It depends on what kind of leads you buy, the turnaround time to getting the leads, etc. But this is not a business that takes 3 to 6 months to break even. This is a business that you should be breaking even within weeks to a month to 2 months tops. Hey, Don. More questions. Here we go. I'll be here all night. Everyone talks about having a passion or the work is too hard or beneath me is all BS. When you have a responsibility, you do what you have to do. Yeah, I mean, like, I like this business. I like, actually, of everything I've done in the insurance business, I love agency building. I love helping agents out. It's something that I enjoy. I can parlay my experience and wisdom. I can help people succeed where they weren't before. I enjoy it way more than actually selling insurance. And selling insurance was kind of my thing that I did. I'm not sitting here in love with seeing people. You know, I'm kind of an introvert. But I did it because, you know, I had this goal. I had this obligation to my family. I didn't want to be poor anymore. I wanted to have success in life, right? I felt it was my destiny to be successful. And in final expense and insurance, it was just my avenue in which to do that, of which I found somewhat enjoyable, and I enjoyed helping people, the prospects themselves. So, but it wasn't something I was just massively in love with all the time. I think that's, you know, there's a lot of people who, you know, their job is, you know, a plumber, and they got to literally clean shit, you know, and God knows what they run into. I'm sure they're not, I can't wait to go to the next toilet to unplug, you know, but they do it because it makes good money. It gives them a lifestyle. It's work, and it does what they need it to do, right? So there's that element too. All right. Lost my place here. I'll get through all these questions. Arvin, hey, I have been looking for agencies to join this summer, and yours seems to be on the top so far. Thank you. I live in Midwest Kansas. If I choose the U.S., I'll be able to work in any market. Absolutely, Arvin. You can sell anywhere in this fine nation of ours. I've got a really great agent out of Wichita named John Dean. He's crushing it in Medicare. I think he wrote like 500 deals last year. So the market's great for Medicare or final expense. But if you want to do telesales, you're not at all constricted to just Kansas, no matter what. Jose, Mr. DeFord, thank you. I've been wanting to sell life insurance, but I'm afraid of chargebacks. If you're afraid of chargebacks, don't do this business. The question is, how do I mitigate chargebacks? How do I reduce them, right, Jose? Kind of like what I talked about before. I'll kind of leave that as the answer to that question. If you're that afraid of chargebacks, understand that all businesses have some kind of chargeback-like event. Think of a restaurant. Do they have chargebacks? Sure. Refunds, right? Scrap. Product that's never used or wasted or spoiled, right? There's always some factor of revenue or commission. In this case, maybe, you know, the bill paid for meals that gets refunded or that they don't realize, right? That's at a loss. So again, final expense, it just manifests in chargebacks, but every single business is like that. If you want a product that really doesn't have a lot of chargebacks, that's Medicare. Medicare doesn't have a ton of chargebacks at all. But it pays less, it cash flows less. Yes, it's a passive income product, and yes, I love it. But for a lot of agents getting started, the cash flow is just too low to support themselves financially, which is why we look at it as like a second step, getting started first with final expense and then getting into Medicare later. I'm a FedEx driver and I'm comfortable, but it's not the life I want financially, and it's also too physical, taking a toll on my body. Yeah, I'm 27 years old, so I'm on a sales job in insurance. I'll tell you what happens when you sell insurance. We call it the final expense 15. You sit down on your butt all day. You're not moving any boxes, but you're driving around, or you're sitting on your butt, taking phone calls or giving phone calls. And if you're around gas stations and eating out of gas stations or fast food, you tend to put a little weight on. So don't forget the fitness element. But yeah, definitely I was 26, man, when I started. That's a fine age to get into this business and to give it a shot for sure. Thank you, $7. Number one, awesome. I'm trying to have a preponderance of proof and my content rank all over the place. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Jose, is it true that Medicare doesn't have chargebacks? Yeah. And are those bullets in the back? Yeah, it's a stack of 1,000. Yeah, so something me and my son can do is shoot our pieces. So thanks for keeping it real. Absolutely, Tracy. Nice to see you, man. Hey, Justin, wish you were on the 8% slate this year. I didn't see your name, so I'm not going. I love your interviews with the Askins. Absolutely, yeah. It's a weird thing. People are surprised. I'm an introvert. Like, I'm terribly introverted. I don't speak at a lot of events. I could if I wanted to, but I'm just not a speaker. I do it so much in front of the camera. It's like I got 73 people on here. It's like standing in front of 73 people. It's not really. I'm just looking at a camera, right? It's different. But I'm not much of a speaker. I speak in small groups, masterminds, that kind of thing. We had one the other day before a convention with a bunch of six-figure producers. That was a lot of fun. I spoke at that. But yeah, I'm just not much of a speaker. I'm kind of a homebody, keep to myself. Y'all know where to find me online. So, Jose, is it true that you can ask the companies you're contracted with to pay you once the policy is a year old so that the money's yours, not in advance? Yeah, Jose, at that point, you're paid what's called as earned, kind of mentioned above with an agent. And basically what happens there is you get a residual income, albeit small with final expense. A couple bucks a month is about the average. Again, I believe, and again, this is a big sales point that I try to pitch everybody on, is that this business of insurance is so awesome that you're able to generate passive income from select products. This is why Medicare is so pivotal for our team, our agency, to promote, because you have a realistic opportunity to make six figures in income after a couple of years of really focusing on a passive basis. Whoops. And so you can't really do that in the final expense space unless you agency build, but you have chargeback risks from there that might roll up to you, right? With Medicare, it's completely different. And there's nothing more special than making money and not having to work to get it because you put the effort in all those years before. And Medicare is one of the few products in insurance that can tap into that. And most of us here, we like making money, but the point most of us realize is the end goal is not about making more money and more money. I think that's pretty shallow. What many of you will hopefully have the one day luxury of realizing, the first world problem as it is, there comes a point when you don't need to necessarily earn more money because you have enough. So it's great. And then it becomes about how you earn your money. Do I work 80 hours a week to make what it is that I like? Or can I do a business where I can maybe work 10 hours a week and then free up my life to do other things besides work? I talked to an agent this week who does missionary work. That's a huge importance in his life. Or spend time with your kids. I like to do jiu-jitsu, lift weights. I couldn't do that if I was selling a product that required 60, 70, 80 hours a week of my time to do it. Medicare allows you to bridge that gap to earn an income in a way that not just earns lucrative income potential, but has the opportunity to have a life with it. And guys, I can't tell you how important that is, because there's a lot of agents that don't pay attention to that get burned out by selling final expense. And it's a very frustrating endeavor long term because you start at zero every month. You got to go kill something to eat. With Medicare, you still got to go get the prospect. But if you can keep them, retain them for years and years and years, you just tap into this business opportunity that gives you what we really all want. It's not just good money, but freedom and autonomy to live life, not just make money. Okay. Is it true that you can ask companies your contract? Oh yeah. Is it easy to leave one agency for another? Yeah. Just tell them you quit. Ask for a release. go to another agency. I have agents who do it all the time, Steve, who join my agency every week. It is not that big of an ordeal to transition from. Justin, hey, can you work for DIG and only do final expense and Telesales only? Absolutely, yeah. So I like, for example, Medicare. A lot of agents who work with us do final expense elsewhere. They got into business through another agency. They're happy with them, but they want to get into the Medicare game. We're absolutely and 100% supported that. Likewise, the other way around. If you're doing something else, but you want to focus tremendously into a telesales or a face-to-face orientation and final expense, happy to have you to do that too. Silver tip, no success available. Even if you make a sale, everyone is broke and you'll get a chargeback in 2 months. Waste of time. That's not true. Of course, it's probably more true at certain places than others. Let me put it this way, Silver. I live entirely, well, probably about 80% to 85% of my income is based off of residuals or what we call overrides off of production. The other 15%, ad revenue from YouTube, my training or my sites, ad revenue there, maybe some affiliate deals. But 85% of my income depends on the success of others to sell. And if they weren't making money, if they weren't successful, I wouldn't be making money. I wouldn't be successful. So again, I think it comes back to what does the organization provide for you? Make sure it's not an MLM, because what they'll try to do is just mass recruit and throw it up against a wall. And it's likely you're going to find the situation you're describing more often there than a business that fully depends on agent production to survive. Jose, aside from Medicare, are there any other products that are charged backless? Yeah, health insurance under 65, Jose. Luis Moreno, you may want to put in the YouTube Luis Moreno DeFord. Check out how health insurance works. That's a fantastic product. It has no chargebacks. You're paid as earned, though. But I believe it's going to be a product that's going to be extremely lucrative as the years go on. Is it fulfilling to provide these services to families? Absolutely. It is incredibly gratifying. It becomes more so when you realize, especially on the life insurance side, you see somebody die that you wrote a policy on and how that policy comes to life, protects that family from financial decimation, and prevents the falling out. Money is a big problem with relationships surviving, not just marriages, but also family. People get pretty pissed off when there's no money to bury mom. And the fact that you showed up, you helped that person and took care of this financially, it has an observable impact on the life of the survivors. And not everybody can do what you've done. Gone into a home or over the phone, sight unseen, made a friend, helped them with a policy, and made a difference in their life. It absolutely is something to be proud of because we do good work. Medicare is an incredible product. Love to sell it. Yeah, definitely. Jose, I was looking into the 3-letter you-know-who. Was actually taking their training they paid for. What does your company offer brokers who partner with you? Enormous amounts of training, support, personal consultation, and mentorship from me. I'm very involved with my agents, as they can attest to. And lead systems, sales support, a full script, a full sales and marketing system. Again, everything you need to be successful. We're going after the entrepreneurial type, not the employee type. And again, I don't want to pitch you too much, but go to daviddeford.com/FAQ to kind of get a more detailed analysis of how that all works. Mark, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me. I'm starving. I got to get out there and have something to eat. I missed my second lunch. And I'll see you tomorrow. We're going to talk about how I failed this business and what lessons you can learn to avoid failure. So if you're new to the business, again, you want to hear that story, I'm going to go into detail about it, and I think you'll get some value out of it. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for being here. I appreciate you very much. Thanks so much for your support. Hit that like button if you haven't already. See you next time.